Hey, this is Mark at Action Figuratorium, and recently I watched a video by one of my new favorite YouTube toy collecting channels, Nerdzoic. I believe Matt is the name of the curator of that channel. He recently did a video about his top 8 toy collecting regrets that he has, and Matt is one of these collectors who buys waves of new toys as they come out. So think like Star Wars Black Series or Marvel Legends. Whereas I only shop at thrift stores and online auction sites where I'm always looking for interesting, rare, but cheap figures to add to my collection. So I thought that I would go through Matt's top 8 regrets and talk about them as they relate to buying of used figures, especially in terms of thrift stores and used auction sites. So stick around. So, the Nerdzoic video on top 8 regrets of toy collecting is pretty fantastic in that it gets to kind of tell you sort of where other people's minds are at, and you realize that we're all sharing kind of a similar experience in terms of toys and toy collecting and pop culture, as well as, you know, just simple things like production and distribution. So to go through these and talk about them as they relate to me, I think is a lot of fun, and I'm hoping to share some cool war stories with you guys that you can relate to. So let me go to his first regret, falling to completionism. And what he's talking about is that a lot of times people are obligated to buy up everything to complete something, complete a set, and that a lot of times that forces you to spend unnecessarily. So what I wanted to say about this is an effect that I've had in picking up toys on the cheap, where I actually have regret that I didn't spend a little bit more money on what it was I was buying. Give you an example, I recently bought an auction for 2 12-inch German figures. Let's pop these guys up. So this guy is a 21st Century Toys German rifleman, and this is a Dragon Models Africa Corps non-commissioned officer. And I ended up paying $17, including the shipping, for both these figures, which is a great price because the 21st Century Toys guy generally new on the card for just generic riflemen probably be about 30 bucks. You'll find people selling them for 40, 50, but you can probably find a guy who'll, you know, cut you a deal for 30 bucks for one of these guys, new with everything. And for a Dragon Models character in the box, probably about $50. Now, if you start going into things like you want generals, you want U-boat commanders, more interesting characters are going to pay a lot more money. But just for generic stock, like, hey, you know, soldier, gun, uniform, 30 for the 21st Century Toys and about 50 for one of these guys. So $17 is great. And now all these prices mean something. You're going to find out as I go down the rabbit hole of what you're going to end up spending in the long run, where the regrets come in. So this guy came with everything. He shovel, belt, he's got the bread bag, he's got the, you know, all this stuff, binoculars, rifle, helmet, boots, 3 grenades, that's $6.99 each. We'll get into that. So this guy's great. So I'm going to say that I paid 17 bucks for this guy, and you know, I don't get the packaging or anything, but I'm completely happy with him. He's already made it into a bunch of videos with the Psy Girls as an antagonist. Good guy. So this guy, when I got him, he did not have the helmet and goggles, okay, and he didn't have the gun. So you think, all right, sure, I'll just go look around, I'll find a gun, can't be that much, a helmet, you know, there's got to be plenty of these German helmets out there, etc. Well, if you think about it, if a guy sells you an accessory, say like a gun, hat, binoculars, something, for $10, you know, eBay gets 10% of that, so that's $1, and then the processing company gets half of that, so it's 50 cents, and then shipping is going to be $3.89-ish, so about $4. So after that, a guy, when he sells you that thing, he's getting $4.50, and that means that at that price, he's technically, with his labor, he's losing money. So if he's got piles of the stuff and he sells things in addition to that bigger, you know, price things like figures for $100, $50, the little accessories is just kind of almost like marketing that you may find him as a result of that. Like there's a cat in my town actually named Black Ops Toys who sort of operates a used store like that, sort of new used, and you know, buys collections. So you're not going to find stuff for like insanely cheap. It's just not going to happen. They just can't physically do that. You're not going to get anything for much less than $10, and if you do, it's going to be amazing. So an MP5, right, $6.50, and that's great. Helmet, German helmet. Now remember, the Dragon guys are a little bit bigger than the G.I. Joes and the 21st Century guys, so you got to get a Dragon helmet. Anyways, $7 for the helmet, not bad. It was not the desert helmet, right? Never going to find that for really, you know, other than like a pack of them or something. So I just took some Grenadier paint, desert yellow, and you know, sponged it on and made it, and it looks kind of cool now because it actually looks like the helmets that the guys wore, that you could see the, you know, the real helmet underneath the paint. And then the goggles, right? These are actual Dragon goggles, the brand, and these are the ones that came with the figure originally, and they were the ones that were missing. Well, not going to find those. Not with any sort of like regularity. You're not going to find multiple of them. You're not going to be able to like work a couple guys down. You know, it's not a buyer's market on the specific pair of goggles, right? So $10.99 plus $3 shipping when they finally appeared, and I was happy to get them. It was great because you know, this guy needed them, and it totally makes the desert rat kind of thing work. So I'm into this guy now. If we say that this guy was 17, right, and this guy was free, then I'm into this guy for $25 in parts, right? And he was mostly complete. He had all this stuff. You know, it came with the canister, it came with the bag, the soft bag, the canteen, the dagger. He's got, you know, he's got all the extra. He's got the grenade. He's got the binoculars, got the scarf. Great character too, you know, and so at that price, you know, can I really afford to resell him? Am I going to make any money on this guy if I decide to get rid of him? And that, what I put into it, you're kind of like, it's no longer cheap. If I just sold him without all this stuff and said, yeah, you know, good luck, I would have made some pretty good money on this guy. But now that I'm that far into it, it doesn't look like it. So he's just going to become part of the gang. He's, you know, he's already, because he's a desert guy, he can go up against 12-inch Indiana Jones, which I've already thrown him into that so far. So this guy is now a keeper. But in terms of completionism and regret, a lot of times on buying these figures, if you're like, okay, I'm going to get this because it's $10 less than the one that's complete, it's just missing an item or a couple items. Even if it's like a gun or something, you know, you're not going to find it. Like you try to find like a little gun for like a Pulp Fiction Mini-Mates, it's not going to happen. It's going to be more than finding another one of the guy in the original package at that point. You know, you're going to spend at least $10 on a piece of junk plastic that doesn't really do anything. At the end of the day, it just creates it. So spend a little bit more. I'm saying that right now. Okay, so let's move on to number 2 here. And that is, he talks about feeding the scalpers. And so what he's talking about there is that he doesn't want to give in and have to buy this thing later at extreme prices. So when you do that, you're sort of feeding these guys who don't really collect the toys. They just figured out that there's a way for them to make money by going in early and buying them, and then when they're sold out, you sort of like, you know, feed the scalpers. So what I can say to that is there was a thing that, because I never buy stuff new, but there was a thing that I really wanted. It was an Iron Maiden Power Slave figure, and it just come up from NECA. Here's my review of it. And I really wanted this thing, but it was just coming out, and I haven't seen, you know, it'll be a while before these things end up loose and used and regurgitated, right? And so in the meantime, once these things sell out, they're not going to go down in price. These are going to be up for by scalpers for quite a bit of money. So what I did is I just looked everywhere. I spent like a couple weeks until I found an online store that did it for $29, right? And that's how I picked up this guy. But I knew that if I waited for these things eventually to start hitting, you know, eBay, that they're going to be way more than that. In fact, if you look on there at any given time, you'll find them in the box, $45 on up. And part of what made me a little bit scared about that was I was looking at some of the other Iron Maiden figures that NECA had done like this, like there's a Trooper, there's Peace of Mind. You know, these are Iron Maiden Elms, by the way, and they have great covers, and these are characters from the covers. And I looked at what those were going for, and they're going for like a lot of money. And I was like, it's just a 12-inch, you know, a G.I. Joe with an Eddie head. And, you know, he's just like, they give him like some G.I., you know, the 2 Minutes to Midnight guy is just a guy in like a black shirt and black pants with a gun, a machine gun, like he's some kind of, you know, Black Ops guy, but with an Eddie head. Like, $80? Like, dumb. Super dumb. And so for this guy, because I love Egyptian stuff, I had to have it. But I still went as cheap as I could to get it, and I found it at a place called Monsters in Motion. So that is how I feel about that regret. Okay, buying crap I didn't need. Let me talk about this for a minute. So one of the things that I do is, there's Nerd. I do toy photography, okay? I have a video studio in one of the suburbs of Portland. Green screen video studio, and we built a photography psych in the back, and that's the room where I do this show out of and do my my indoor stuff. This is kind of what I have going on in the psych right now from the last thing I shot. And a lot of times when I go to stores, I see things that are going to look great maybe in a photo shoot. Like I see something that other people don't see. I see things that people wouldn't normally buy. Give you an example, right? This is a it's like a Barbie scooter, you know, kind of Vespa-esque. $2.99. I don't know if you can see that. You know, it's what I pay for most things, a couple bucks. It's not the most dangerous financial collecting hobby that I have, picking up crap like this. But when I saw this, right, even though it looks terrible, and it is terrible, I was like, you know, I'm really into doing these Psy girls, right? And I was like, okay, well, this is cool, because now I got something to the scale of the Psy Girls. And here's AJ McLeod. And so I was like, all right, this is cool. This is a piece that that I can use in photographs. They can sit on it, they can stand next to it, they can do all sorts of stuff. If I decide that the paint job is terrible, well, take a day and redo the paint on it if I want. You know, I'm sure after I primer, I'm sure it'll come out and make it look cool. And who knows? Maybe I could actually probably use it in a photography shoot and resell it and get my $2.99 back, or paint it and mark it up and say it's some sort of custom mod thing. The point is that it would technically go under the buying crap I didn't need. And what happens is the stuff will be priced pretty cheap, and you go, okay, well, it's only $3, it's only $2, only, you know, something. But when you're doing that every day, eventually it adds up. And if you do it every week, eventually it adds up. And at the end of the month, you've acquired all these extra props and sets and stuff, you know, these Vespas and whatnot from Barbies, and you spend as much as these guys who buy every Black Series, you know, droid or Marvel Legends Build-A-Fig waves or something, or, you know, or even these like super expensive $200 sideshow collectibles guys, you know. You're just in as much as them, and it's because it was crap that you really didn't need, although I would argue that that I clearly did need it. So, all right, number 4, spending money without regard. I think I just kind of touched on that at the end of buying crap I didn't need, is that there have been many times when I bought stuff where it's been a great purchase. I've used it in photographs all the time, brings me a lot of joy. For example, a Playmobil pyramid was kind of really sort of out of my budget, spent way more than I should have, but it's great. It gets used all the time in all my A material, and you know, you can, it's got all sorts of corners and edges and things inside, outside that you can photograph with. It's really multi-use, but there's a lot of the things that don't fall into that basket that I've bought, as far as like play sets and props and ships and cars and that go. And you just buy it because you're like, ah, well, you know, if I pass it up, it's not going to be here tomorrow. It may not be here in an hour. And so I've bought a lot of stuff without regard for the money in the long run, and it leads to a regret. And the only way sometimes for me to get out of that feeling is to just turn around and then try to sell something and sort of, you know, break even, as it were. Okay, shopping smart. This kind of goes back to that Iron Maiden story, where I spent a lot of time trying to find one essentially new, because they were just coming out, and I knew that they were going to be scalped later, and you would never find one for cheap. So in that case, it was really sort of getting ahead of the train. I think there's a lot of stuff out there like that, and I think a lot of people not impulse buy, but they buy because they know that it's just going to be more expensive down the line. In many cases, it's true. If you wait on any of this Mythic Legion stuff that's coming out, you're going to lose. If you want it later, you're going to pay much, much more. You should just buy the Eagleist the first time around and don't try and pick it up later. All right, passing on figures that blow up in price. This is one of these, you know, one of these things where I have actually seen some stuff listed for pretty cheap on eBay, and picked it up because I was like, you know, it's only going to go up in price. And then looking at it later, I'm like, not going anywhere. It's clearly these guys goofed me, and I got burned. All right, buying things without a plan. For me, doing toy photography, I will put together concepts in my mind ahead of time, like talking about the Playmobil Egyptian Pyramid, using that with Indiana Jones, using it with Iron Maiden Power Slave. That kind of stuff I have a plan with, right? But there's a lot of things that when I get it, I don't have a plan, and I just put it away thinking it'll be there later if I need it. But you end up with a lot of stuff, and at the end of the day, it ends up becoming a lot of crap that you're never ever going to use. Anytime you can really sort of see what you're going to do with it later really does help. So to Nerdzoic on this one, I think that this is actually probably, his strongest. Well, he's sharing it as a regret, but it's really a strategy for a healthy lifestyle, and I mean that. All right, last one, buying things just to have them. That kind of what is toy collecting all about, but I have to say that there's quite a few things that I've picked up just to sort of have it, and there's always a bit of regret, but what I say to people is if you're smart and patient, just hang on a little bit, because those Lion-O figures with Action Punch on the card are going to be $265 to $300. So anything that you bought that you regret, don't panic. Hang on to it. If you keep it long enough, it'll be worth all that and more. So that is my my take on Matt's approach to collecting as it pertains to used market. So if you can, everybody, follow, and we'll catch you on the next one.